This article contains discussion surrounding the real-life crimes of Jeffrey Dahmer, including pedophilia and murder. Monster? The Jeffrey Dahmer story covers the shocking murdering spree of the Milwaukee cannibal, but the police may have prevented the death of one of Dahmer's youngest victims. Created by Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan, Monster. The Jeffrey Dahmer story is a comprehensive retelling of the infamous serial killer's life. The Netflix miniseries stars Evan Peters, best known for playing Marvel's Quicksilver, as Jeffrey Dahmer, and Niecy Nash as Glenda Cleveland, Dahmer's suspicious neighbor who calls the police when Conrad Synthesophone escaped Dahmer's apartment naked, bruised and drugged. Synthesophone's tragic death is retold in episode 2 of the true crime series Monster. Jeffrey Dahmer lured the 14-year-old boy to his apartment by offering him money to pose for nude photos. There, Dahmer drugged and beat Synthesophone before taking photos of his unconscious body. When Dahmer left to buy beer, Synthesophone escaped and was found outside by Glenda Cleveland, who called the police. Disturbingly, the police left Synthesophone with Dahmer, and he was murdered shortly after. In reality, the incident was similar to the monster's portrayal, although it wasn't Cleveland who found Synthesophone outside. Cleveland still has a connection with the event, and Monster's episode 2 ends with the real-life phone call between the police and Cleveland, who was shocked they didn't help Dahmer's soon-to-be victim. Although Monster leaves out some details from Dahmer's life, the portrayal of the police officers who could have prevented Conrad Synthesophone's death was largely accurate. The incident occurred in 1991 and involved 3 officers: John Balcerzak, Richard Porubkin, and Joseph Gabrish. Here's the true story of why they left the teenager with Jeffrey Dahmer and what happened to them following Dahmer's arrest. Why the Milwaukee police returned Conrad Synthesophone to Jeffrey Dahmer on May 27, 1991. Sandra Smith and Nicole Childress found Conrad Synthesophone outside Dahmer's apartment and immediately called the police, believing the boy to be no more than 11 or 12 years old. When the police officers arrived, Dahmer had returned and was holding Synthesophone up, which the police claimed wasn't suspicious because Synthesophone was not trying to break away. The officers questioned Dahmer, who politely answered everything, including giving Officer John Balcerzak his personal information. Dahmer convinced the officers that Synthesophone was his 19-year-old house guest called John Mung, who had drunk too much, as retold in Monster's true crime portrayal of the event. Balcerzak repeated his questions to test whether Dahmer was telling the truth, and his answers were the same each time. At the same time, Officer Joseph Gabrish questioned Synthesophone, who was unable to respond. Shortly after, Officer Richard Porubkin arrived at the scene to provide backup to Balcerzak and Gabrish. In Dahmer's apartment, the officers claimed to have found no sign of assault and saw the almost nude photos of Synthesophone lying around, which convinced them that the pair were in a consensual relationship. Believing that everything checked out, the officers left Synthesophone with Dahmer, and the 14-year-old was murdered 30 minutes later. Why the police officers got reinstated after the Dahmer incident? When Dahmer was arrested in July 1991, he confessed that he had strangled Synthesophone moments after the police officers had left. Jeffrey Dahmer also admitted that if the officers had investigated his apartment, they would have found the body of another victim in his bedroom. The investigation into Jeffrey Dahmer's murders uncovered that the officers failed to validate Dahmer's official identification, which would have shown that Dahmer was a registered sex offender, having molested Synthesophone's older brother in 1988. Following Dahmer's arrest, a recording of Gabrish and Balcerzak making homophobic jokes about reuniting the lovers became public and was heavily criticized. The 2 officers were fired, while Porubkin was briefly suspended. Both Gabrish and Balcerzak, the two police officers depicted in Ryan Murphy's latest TV show Monster, were reinstated a few years later and received back pay, having maintained their claim that they did their best with the information they had. Their reinstatement was criticized, with many believing they had not conducted a thorough investigation because Synthesum phone was not white and seemingly in a homosexual relationship with Dahmer. Balcerzak went on to become the president of the Milwaukee Police Union, and the two officers retired in the late 2010s, despite their involvement in Konarak Synthesum phone's death as covered in Monster. The Jeffrey Dahmer story.